What
Yeah.
was the first training aid that you designed? Because you guys have a ton on your roster. So what was the first one, and what was experiencing or what was going wrong in your game that you're like, all right, I got to try and fix myself? And I swear to God, like one of the number one things I see is people just all their weight's on their back foot. They're trying to help it up. They're trying to lift it up. And that, as a golf writer and someone that was going through that myself, I started to really like dive into it. What's it like to get that? Like, how do you get on, or professional golfers, like, how do you get on their radar? What's that process even look like?
That's a good question. So, uh, one of them is Wyndham Clark.
Did you know that in 2022, the global market size for training aids like these ones was $827 million? That's right, nearly $1 billion in training aids, which makes sense because every golfer wants to hit it longer, hit it straighter, play more consistently, and hopefully gonna lead to having more fun. And the truth is that training aids really can have a big impact on your game. In fact, even the best players in the world are using training aids before they head out to the first tee. So yes, training aids can absolutely help your game. However, they're not all created equal. After being a freelance golf writer for about 7 years, I've tried nearly every training aid on the market. Plus, I went to the PGA show the last few years and tried even more. And while I am a big fan of them, you have to make sure that you're using them the right way. Over the past few years, I've really enjoyed the YGolf training aids like the putting thing, the pressure plate, and a few others. So today I got to interview the founder of YGolf, Brad Mason. He's gonna take you through what the process is like to actually develop a training aid and how they can help you play wicked smart golf. Never forget, the second pillar of my book is learning how to practice like a pro. When you use these training aids correctly and actually stay consistent, they can have a massive impact on your ability to build a more reliable and consistent swing. Now, let's get in the interview with Brad.
All right, Brad, thanks again for being a guest on Wicked Smart Golf. Excited to talk to you today about training aids and helping golfers with the practice side of things.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be here, Michael. I appreciate the opportunity. Golf's
Absolutely. You guys are great, man. I just have to call it out right out of the gates. Like, I've been, using your training aids for years. So it's cool that we've had the ability to kind of collaborate and help golfers out. Just because YGolf, you guys are doing it right. You got great marketing, great products. And I don't know if you've learned the 5 pillars of Wicked Smart, but the second one is all about learning how to practice like a pro. So we got to make sure that we're not wasting time on the driving range and that we're, making the most of it. And there's no doubt you guys can help with that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we love what we're doing, and anytime we can make the people suck a little bit less at this game, we're happy to help in any way we can. It's a hard game.
It's such a hard game. I mean, even before we hit record, I told you I've been playing 25 years and, trying to, even in Oregon, I was out there when it was raining and 35 degrees. I mean, it's like a sickness though. I mean, once it gets in you, you're addicted to it. I mean, most of the people that are listening to this are absolutely addicted. And that's actually kind of the first thing I want to talk about. You said on your website, golf isn't the problem, bad golf is the problem. So I love the marketing. I don't know who's doing all that. That's Jamie or you or everybody else, but you guys are very witty and I think understand that the everyday golfer, we struggle, right? It's a hard game. And so you guys are trying to just suck a little bit less.
If you think about it, it doesn't really matter if you are a 25 handicap or a scratch player. The frustration of the game is always there. It's always just a little bit out of our reach. And then the worst thing that happens to us is we hit a couple of good shots and suddenly, we figured it out, quote unquote. That's going to be the name of my book someday because I figured it out about 1,500 times. And then just, it's always out of our reach. It doesn't matter how good you are. You can't beat the game. Scotty Scheffler to a beginner, there's always that frustration that you could have done a little something better. If you think about after a round, you're hanging out with the guys or somebody asks you, how was your day? Well, I mean, I would have shot this had I not done that, every time. So anything we can do to make it a little bit easier and a little more fun, that's such a huge part of it is the social aspect and just having fun. But it's a heck of a lot more fun if you're playing better than you expect to be for yourself.
Totally. 2 things I had to elaborate on there that you just mentioned. One is that I was talking with a mental golf coaching student and he's like, I feel like I was right there, but there's still 1 or 2. And I'm like, there's always going to be 1 or 2. I was like, I've never had a round where I said, that was it. That was the perfect round. I don't think anyone has. I'm sure even when Jim Furyk shot 58, he's probably like, there was one, one loose swing or one, it's like, it's so funny though. We're always saying that. So I try and always tell the listeners and readers, like, after the round, let's focus on the good stuff. Cause, if you're in the bar, you hear, oh, if I would have made that putt, or, oh, my driving was terrible today. So it's like so funny that you mentioned that, because yeah, we tend to focus on all the negative things when in reality, we used a crooked club to, hit a golf ball a couple hundred yards. We should be pretty excited and really be celebrating some of those wins too.
Oh, you know what? If you think about it, you're swinging a golf club head, let's say at 90 miles an hour, 22 feet, to hit something the size of a quarter with a square face. I mean, it's amazing that we can even touch the golf ball, let alone control it. And if it's 200 yards and it's off by a degree, you're 10 yards off. I mean, it's really an amazing game. That's why I think we like it. I'm such a type A person. I like the challenge of it. It's just a phenomenal game. And for me, I like practicing almost as much as I like playing. It's fun to go out there and try and figure things out. And, on Sunday I played, Brian Henniger is one of the guys that works with us. Brian was on the tour he played professionally for almost 30 years and had a couple wins on the PGA Tour and 5 wins as a pro. And he's just a great guy. And I've known him for years, helping support his foundation up. And he's an Oregon guy like you. He's up in just south of Portland. Anyway, he was down for a memorial service for Richard Helmstetter. I don't know if you know who Richard is. He was the inventor of the Big Bertha and Ely Callaway's right-hand guy. And
oh, wow.
And friend of a lot of ours. It was just an amazing guy, and who passed away, unfortunately, but incredible life and career. But Brian was down for that. And we went out and played on Sunday, and I've been really struggling. And I've been, what's new? It's the swing of the week for me, because I'm just trying. And suddenly, using the arm alarm, I said, okay, Brian, on this back nine, I'm just going to focus on that, just keeping my elbows together. Suddenly it all comes together, except for one shot on 18, and what am I thinking about? That one shot. Actually, I did pretty well, because I thought, hey, if I only had one bad shot, that's a heck of a 9 for me. So anyway,
yeah, no, it's just like you said, though, there's always, like, our brain wants to remember those bad stuff, right? Way more than the good ones. And those bad ones, a lot of times we charge them with emotion. So then we really remember them, because our brain's like, oh man, there's something scary going on. There's a saber-tooth tiger. It's like, no, you just hit a shank on, you didn't want to have it, right? Or you missed that 3-foot putt. So it's funny, the little tricks we have to play. Sounds like you're obviously addicted to the game, like so many of us that are, on this show and reading and being a part of Wicked Smart Golf. How did you get started? And I always like to kind of figure out the background of someone, especially someone that creates amazing training aids, which I'm excited to get into. But like, how'd you get started on this great game?
So, I grew up playing a little bit. And I mean, I played at Torrey Pines when I was a kid. When I used to go out at Torrey Pines after, the sunset rate was, I think, $4 when I was a kid. And yeah,
it's not much more now, though. It's like $40 if you're a San Diego resident.
Probably.
Stealing.
Probably, yeah. And I should probably admit, on a couple of courses I used to sneak onto and play. And hey, kids are supposed to I don't blame them if I were to catch them. I say, hey, nice job, Anyway, so I started playing pretty young, and then I got involved in my career, and I didn't have as much time to play. So I was always just in that high single digit sort of range. And if you don't work at the game, you lose it quickly, especially the short game. And so, I didn't work at it enough, didn't have the time to work at it enough, but I still loved it. And it was a social thing for me. It was also for business. I was in the orthopedic business, started a couple companies there that are pretty good size. Now it's sports medicine. So if you see a knee brace on anybody, those were probably my patents or my brother's patents, or continuous cold therapy, those sorts of things. So coming out of that business, we knew how the body worked, and we knew, what you could put on it, what kind of knee brace is going to stay up versus fall down versus work, and, hold your ACL and all those sorts of things. So, I mean, many, many years of that. I was the CEO of a large multinational orthopedic company with spine and hardware and different things. And so, I'm kind of a little bit of a unicorn in that I went from being an entrepreneur to a public company CEO job, which is completely different. But I just like to learn, and it was fun. Right. And then when I was done with that, but even before I finished, I said, I can't not do, I have to do something. My mind just has to do something else. So I thought about a couple training aids out of my desperation. And, and then started working with some great guys like Brad Ott at TPC Craig Ranch and Brian and Amy Simonton, his partner and things. And just, I find that people in the golf industry are really, really cool people. They're down to earth. They get it. You don't find too many assholes, really. You really don't. And if you do, nobody's hanging out with them. We all know who they are and we stay away from them. So, having that social aspect. And then the coolest thing for me is my brother is an unbelievable engineer. I mean, the best I've ever seen. His IQ is off the charts, and he can do in his mind with a mechanical structure he can do in his mind like Mozart did with music. And so he and I have built things since we were little kids together. We would always we say, okay, what are we going to build today? And in those days, you go outside, you don't stay inside, and you go find an old skate and you put a board on it and you build it and whatever it is. And it's just, we've done that our whole lives. And sometimes he'd build one and I'd build one. Mine would be done first and his would be done better. It's just, and so I'm working with him every day. We've worked together most of our lives. He combined, we've got over 100 patents, in different things. So designing training aids it's just fun. I mean, it's just a whole lot of fun. All the designs come from us, come from our minds, and the idea may not, but the products do. And it's just a blast. I couldn't ask for anything more, particularly at this stage in my life.
I mean, that's when we were talking last week, about some other stuff. And I was just thinking to myself, like, how do you get all this, like, creativity? And obviously we've both been to the PGA show. There's so many different training aids out there and everyone's trying to help us a little bit, make this game, like you said, a smidge easier. What was the first training aid that you designed? Because you guys have a ton on your roster. So what was the first one and what was what was going wrong in your game that you're like, all right, I got to try and fix myself?
So the first one we don't even sell because it ended up too expensive, but it was a really, really cool product. In fact, we went to the PGA show with it. It was called the Swing Trainer, and it mounted either on a metal structure or on a wall. And it was almost like a cable machine, but it worked quite a bit differently. When you pulled down on it, where it pulled from actually moved like a golf club would. The cable would pull, and the force would reduce. It wouldn't increase. Which makes a lot of sense. So at the top, you had to use your body to pull that thing down. So it forced the sequence, and it was really, a really nice product. I've got one in the other room, and but it just wasn't.
So was your issue that you were just getting too steep and not really using your lower body to start the downswing? And
absolutely, I was over the top guy from way back.
Yeah, I mean, you're not alone there. I've made a business from writing about that kind of stuff. So yeah, exactly. I fully understand. So that was the first one. That had to be cool. I mean, going to the PGA show, that's an unbelievable thing. I can't wait for it already. I just saw the email go out. Like, it's just weird to see 30,000 golfers just so excited about everything. So it's had to be. It's fun, I guess, for us. I know you have to do a little bit more side on the vendor side, but so that was kind of your first invention, and then. Where did you start to say, like, hey, where is this, like, what training aid really like started to take off for you guys?
Yeah, so it really started with kind of two, and it was I was playing at Bandon Dunes with Brian Henniger and his partner Amy Simonton, who was a all Pac-10, unbelievable golfer, and instructor at the golf farm with him. And she was saying, hey, I need something better than a $300 device to hold my alignment rods at different angles. I said, well, we can do that. That's easy. And so we took some time and came up with the alignment disc, which just has the holes in it, and so it's easy to use. And I'm a big believer in keeping things as simple as possible. It's interesting because simple is harder to design than complicated. It's much harder, but we really focus and try to keep it simple. So that was the first one. And then the other one, and then the next one that really took off was the pressure plate as well. And, with a little bit different view of it, so you could get ground reaction force because of the spikes on the bottom and keeping it low and things like that. And also, it was the first one that has it stays level when you're at address, and it'll only tilt back if you get at least 60% of your pressure on your rear foot, and it'll only tilt forward if you get 70%. It's not as though they tell you if you're shifting, but when you're shifting, but if you're shifting enough. So that was the other one that really took off for us. And then we just kind of went from there and just having more and more fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say both those are great too. I like the disc because you can use it indoors too. So a lot of people, winter golf's coming up, simulators, nets, stuff like that. So it's cool because you can use it. Obviously, I go to a simulator here in Arizona, so I don't sweat myself to death. And it's like sometimes you can't just like put have a basket or put a range, or a stick in there. So it's really helpful for that. But the pressure plate is how I originally found you guys because I have hit a lot of thin shots in my life, and when I really think about it, it was usually, now that I know what I know, it was just because my weight was too far on my back foot. And so I was just on a quest one day to be like, God, I gotta fix this. And I remember buying your training aid, and I actually bought one of your competitors who will leave nameless, but theirs was terrible. And I'm not just saying that because you're on, but I truly thought I was going to hurt myself. I shipped that thing back immediately. And I like yours, and that's one of my top performing YouTube videos is the review of the pressure plate, because I find that I just, I'm a creature of habit. I'll go to the range and practice, but I'm like to watch what other people are doing. It's great content. It's like, things I'm trying to learn from different golfers at different levels. And I swear to God, one of the number one things I see is people just all their weight's on their back foot. They're trying to help it up. They're trying to lift it up. And that, as a golf writer and someone that was going through that myself, I started to really like dive into it. I'm not a big swing guy. I'm definitely far from a, PGA coach or anything. But when I started to like learn more and watch some more videos and realize that we need to be getting our weight to our front foot a lot sooner than people think. Because I think one of the things I always learned incorrectly, or maybe I just misheard it, was start the downswing with your hips. It's like, yes, but let's get that weight to the front foot as well. Otherwise, you're just going to spin out of it, hit the nasty slice, hit some thin shots. And so I really like the pressure plate because it just helped feel that. And you could use it indoors, you could use it outdoors. And it was, like you said, it's simple. Like there's nothing you do. Just take it out of the box and you can just train it. Like even if you're not at hitting golf balls, you can just like feel it at home. So that's why I really like it. So props to you for that. I know you guys have an accessory for the wedges too. It's great for that. But I love that. And if you guys need help with weight transfer, I just can't stress enough how good it is, because that's a big thing. I mean, I feel like 80% or more of all golfers are probably leaving 10 yards on the table and better contact from just not transferring their weight. Would you agree?
I agree completely. In fact, we just came out with a little attachment to it. It's a power wedge. It just puts your trail foot at about a 15-degree angle, so you can actually push off even a little bit better.
Okay.
It's a really cool little adapt. It just snaps on. If you have a pressure plate, it just snaps right onto it. And we sell them with them now too. And I originally talked to Jason Zubak about that. Six-time long drive champion, and
yeah,
send him one and stuff. He's an awesome guy. He's a great guy. Anyway, so that helps it as well. But you're right. I don't think a lot of amateurs don't realize when they're hitting it thin, it's because they're bottoming out before the ball and the club is coming up. Mm-hmm. It's not because the ball's the club's too far ahead and they're coming down on it. It's the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of, in our instructional videos, we have a lot of things on drills on. A great drill for most amateurs is to just put your pressure on your left side, your lead side, I should say, your lead side, and leave it there during a swing and see what that feels. It's a completely different feeling for a lot of people. And it's a great drill. It's a great drill. But you look at Scotty Scheffler, his pressure, his weight, his center of mass moves probably 6 to 8 inches over onto that lead side, probably more than anybody else in the world.
You're talking about on the downswing?
On the downswing, and it's not all rotation. He's moving his center of mass to that lead side, and apparently it's working.
Yeah, I mean, this guy didn't. I mean, I still can't even believe the year he had. It's hard to believe. I mean, he's putting up Tiger numbers, So it's but it also goes to show that there's no perfect swing. I always, really stress that so much. People love to tell me how awful my swing is on social media, and I'm like, well, okay, but you could look at my handicap card. I mean, I'm playing in tournaments. These are all real, So it's like you don't have to swing it perfect to get those kind of results, right? And that's the whole point of training aids is using them to build a more consistent swing. It's not to build a quote unquote perfect swing. Otherwise, Rory'd win everything, right? So right. Do you feel like there's anything specific you see with amateurs that are using training aids? Are they using them not enough? Are they using them too much? Like what are some maybe best practices people should be using with training aids to get the most out of it so that way they can take their range game to the golf course?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'll give you an analogy. When we first started designing knee braces, this was back in the early 80s. I'll date myself. There was only one knee brace on the market, and it was built out of Lenox Hill Hospital in New York City for Joe Namath. And the thing was a big aluminum sort of thing. And they started, bars and heavy. It was like wearing an alligator on your knee. And so we came out with our version of knee braces, so we had a whole bunch of different inventions and different types of knee braces and things. And I remember one of the ads we did was we showed that thing in the back of a closet. I said, it's not going to do you any good in here, and because nobody would wear it. And it's the same thing with a training aid. I think people expect instant gratification. I mean, okay, so let's talk about what are we actually selling, and what are all the golf companies selling? We're selling hope, right? That's what we're selling.
Yep.
We're selling hope. And so if you think about it, I think people think of it as unrealistic hope. Okay, I'm going to do this and then suddenly I'm going to be no, you've got to pay your dues. You've got to practice. You've got to use the things. I think a really good way to do things, and came from Brad Ott, director of instruction at TPC Craig Ranch. I said, okay, Brad, I got about 3 things I need to work on. How should I do that? He said, well, hit 3 balls with one of those swing thoughts, hit 3 balls with the second swing thought, and 3 balls with the third, and then hit 3 balls not thinking about any of them, and just keep doing that. I think it's a little bit the same way with some of the training aids. If you're on the pressure plate and you're just pounding balls all day, you got to get off of it too. You got to use it, get the feel, and you kind of have to work back and forth. But you got to use it and you got to practice. I mean, if it takes Tiger a year to make a swing change, we expect instant results. It's not realistic. And I never want to be in that position as a company that we set expectations like that. I see so many companies out there, that never hit a bad shot again. And all
I
of
know
these
the companies you're talking about. Yeah.
outrageous
Yeah.
things. It doesn't work that way. You got to pay your dues. You got to pay your dues.
Yeah, no, and you brought up a good point too there. And I think I talked about it maybe a little bit in my book, but I probably want to elaborate on it as well. As like, yes, training aids are great, but you got to use them and then stop using them for 5 on, 5 off, or 10 and 10. Like, get the feel and then go back and forth, because you still obviously want to simulate eventually what it's going to be like on the golf course. If you're using it 99% of your practice, you're going to feel real scared when you're out there, without it. So it's like, yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And like you said, you still got to put in the work. And that's what I have always liked with you guys. It's suck less, right? It's not like be a scratch golfer tomorrow, right? It's like this stuff takes time. And the Tiger analogy is really good. I mean, to think about him, it's still hard to think about, right? Like that he took that long to rebuild his swing. Like the guy that arguably is the best ever. I think he's the best ever. Like that,
For sure.
even him took that long. It's still weird to think about, huh? It's like, it's such a weird motion, and we get into such established habits that it takes a lot of repetition to build and groove a new swing that feels good enough to at least go play with.
I mean, you're spot on, Michael. I think, and the longer you've been doing it, the harder it is to change it, because it's just you've wrapped myelin, right? And those pathways are there. There's no muscle memory. It's all in your head, and so
Right.
But it's there, and you have to undo that before you can wrap new myelin and practice and get really good. I mean, you listen to Tiger, and he talked about the time he spent with Butch, where Butch had him take the club to the top and pause for like 2 seconds. Tiger said he hates that drill to this day because Butch made him do it for a year nonstop, hundreds of times a day, and he hates that drill. But that's probably one of the best drills any amateur could do, because where does it all goes wrong? Even if you get it in the right spot, it goes wrong in the transition. So, I mean, but for Tiger to do that, and these guys are spending 5, 6, 8 hours a day practicing and working, and we expect to go out and our expectations are high. But I think the practice is a key part of that is building confidence, particularly in short game. If you're not confident over a tight lie 30 yards off the green to a relatively tight, close pin, you're going to chunk it, you're going to have a yip and things like that. So I think practicing those things, understanding, getting comfortable getting confident. Without that confidence, it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, pillars 3 and 4 are all about short game. You know, putting is so key. Short game with the wedges and just improving your chipping and pitching is absolutely necessary, because no matter how good you get, you're going to miss greens, right? It's like even the best guys in the world only hit 67% of greens in reg, and I think scratch golfers are about 50%. So missing greens is going to happen as long as we play. I really like the putting thing. So you guys sent me that. I'm a big fan of it. It's been well received. I know you guys have several professionals using it. Talk about the putting thing, because I think that to me it's so good, because one, it allows you to use your ball on a green, indoors or outdoors, and it has different difficulty levels, and you don't really have to change anything like other similar training aids that make you kind of hover it and maybe place the ball up a little too much and stuff. So how did you design that, or where did that come from? Were you tired of 3-putting, or had you just heard enough of your followers
Actually,
and fans, or what was the inception of the
question.
putting
Good
thing?
question. Actually, putting was probably the best thing that I did. So that one wasn't for
So
me.
that wasn't you solving
That
yourself?
wasn't me. So it was actually from Anthony Palucci. Anthony has played on the various tours for years. He was a number one junior in the world when he was a young man. I know his dad. I've known him for many years. So I saw Anthony out on the putting green one day, and he was using a putting tool, a training aid, and he asked me. He said, could you make some changes to this to make it a little better?" Now, Anthony is really technical, very particular about what he does. I mean, he's using a string, he's using a level, he's trained his feet to feel slope. I mean, he works at it. So we spent probably a year working on the putting thing to try to do as much as we could, as simply as we could, so everything would make sense. First of all, make it very thin so that the putter's not up. I mean, it's aircraft aluminum. It's a 1/16 of an inch thick. That's all it is. The ball's on the grass. It's not on it, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a huge value that people probably underestimate to that drill that Tiger does with the 2 T's that he puts right on the ends of his putters, and then he hits through so that it's hitting in the sweet spot every time, or he's hitting in the middle. So having those gates, and then instead of putting a bunch of tees in the ground for the ball to go through, we put gates for the balls that are adjustable. And so and then some instead of having a mirror, which it's all a good idea. But it's more about whether your eyes are over it or slightly inside. It's more about making sure they're there consistently in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
So we have little marks on there when you put the ball in. You can see if your eye's over the ball and where it is, and you can see if your putter's lined up. So we have a lot of tour pros now using it in their hands and enjoying it. And I think it's a really great product, and it's easy to use with it. It's got that alignment rail on it. You just snap the rail on, because how do you know if you take a putting mirror? How do you know that it's lined up the way you want it? So you may be pulling putts slightly, or you may be going through 2 gates that aren't lined up. So you have to do some sort of adjustment to get through. With this, you just put the rail on, you hit a few balls and just change its direction until the balls go in, then take the rail off. And now you know it's set.
If you're interested in getting started with YGolf, make sure to use the code WICKEDSMART at checkout, and you're going to save 15% on your investment.
So
yeah, it's easy. I think that's the biggest thing. I always, when I was writing a lot for different clients over, 2018 to 2022, like I was writing tons and tons of different gear articles. And that's the biggest thing I always said is the easier it is, the more likely you are to use it. Because like you said, like with the knee brace example, there's nothing worse than having something just sit in your garage, sit in your closet. It's just taking up space, cost a couple $100 and you didn't even use it, and it's like, if you have to make it as easy as possible. And that's why I do like that. And it's super small, right? It's like you can use it inside. I got a sweet new Prime putting mat that I've been using. I got that on there. So I like that you can use it inside or outside. What's it like to get that? Like, how do you get on, or professional golfers, like how do you get on their radar? What's that process even look like?
That's a good question. So one of them is Wyndham Clark. Wyndham is a member of the same club that I am down in Cabo, and
which course?
At the Cove Club down there.
Okay.
Used to be the Cabo del Sol Ocean Course. Now it's the Cove Club.
Gotcha. I'm a big Cabo guy. We always play Cavera, and we played Puerto Los Cabos and a few other ones. So we go there every November. That place is amazing.
Well, I'll be there in November. We'll play some golf.
Okay.
Golf club is phenomenal now. Anyway, so and we had somebody, I think it was actually with Wyndham, it was Anthony's Anthony Palucci helped me design it. I think it was his cousin or so was a member at a club, and he knew Wyndham, and so Wyndham used it. And then we have a tour rep out there too,
Okay.
who's taken it out there every week and showing the guys that and several other of our products, and a lot of interest from those guys. Of course, we don't. It's not like we charge them for it, so but let's be realistic. But no, I think it's popping up more and more. It's just a good tool. Really
Yeah,
good.
so it just kind of started off with a connection, and then you have a tour rep now that travels and always is kind of out there talking about that and other training aids then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say just with the putting thing, I think too, it's so important to get that start line right. Like I just can't stress that enough with everyone is like if you don't, because if your start line's wrong, like even you're the best read, the best routine, you're setting yourself up for failure. And the eye position, just to finish and close this loop, because the eye position, I had an awful putting year. I wouldn't wish the year I had prior to about a month ago. Well, there's a few people I might wish it on, but it's not something that I would wish upon many. And I realized, well, there were several mistakes, but one of them was eye position. And I'm very left eye dominant, and I was getting too far underneath. And so it was kind of changing it. So for me, when I started to get my left eye really just right on top of it, I know right eye you can maybe get away with a little bit under, and I would get over sometimes too, but in previous years. So it's so funny though how the smallest things make the biggest difference with putting, and literally every inch counts. So I do like that it helps with the eye position, and I like that you can make it harder, or if you're a brand new golfer, it can still help too. I mean, that's like the beginner to intermediate golfer, they're giving up so many shots with putting. I mean, even for, strong, like, scratch golfers, it's like 30% of all your shots. So it's like, if you can get some feedback and actually use it, makes a huge difference.
Yeah, for most people, you're talking over 40% of their shots. I have a great drill with that I play with. I use. I actually putt into it instead of out of it from about 3 to 4 feet. About 3 feet. I set the gates pretty wide open, and I putt into it. So you're making a really, really small, so you get really confident about, okay, if I can put it through those gates going back in, then a hole is, 3 times that wide, twice that wide. It's actually very good for, if you have the yips on short putts, or, matches coming down to one that they would normally give you and they don't. But if you've done that 100 times, it's no problem.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. You guys, you've been holding out on me. You gotta update. Well, we'll get a video up on Instagram, because that's a good one, right? You got to make practice hard, and you got to, like we talked about, make it like transfer to the golf course too. I think that's so key. I'm curious, like, what are some of the hurdles of running a trading company? Because I mean, there's, we have so many people trying to knock stuff off, and you got drop shippers all over the world, and you guys have found a lot of success. You have a ton of different products too. Like, I'm just curious from the business aspect, like what that looks like. How do you, try and deal with all that? Because it's obviously got to be something that, every company has to deal with at some point.
It's a really great question. I try to answer most of our customer questions myself. I love that interaction, and some of some people are just angry about our price, as an example. Well, that should cost a lot less than that. I think what most people don't realize is the cost of the product is a lot less than the cost of getting a customer and advertising. In direct to consumer, it's really, really expensive. I mean, it was a shock to me coming out of medical device business, where I have a sales rep that calls on a doctor. I know what I'm going to pay him in commission, or him in commission. And, I got a handle on that. Boy, you get to direct to consumer and e-commerce. Oh my God, what an education. And it's expensive. It's really expensive to get a customer. And it's just constant new content. And another thing that shocked me was when you go to these agencies that have had a lot of experience, and they say, literally, you could put 10 Instagram, Facebook ads in front of me, and I cannot tell you which one's going to work. You don't know. So you just have to get it out there. And Meta's expensive. All these things are expensive, and Amazon is expensive and stuff. People don't realize that the marketing is, over 60% of what they're paying is just to get them to see it, be able to see it. So that's a big challenge. And And then the other challenge for us is, it's been pretty capital intensive because we have so many new products. And when you have new products, that's tooling, that's inventory, that's spaced up warehouse and things like that. But if I wasn't designing new products, I wouldn't be having fun. So I got to do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, those are the challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most people have no idea about that. I mean, even for me, I'm still learning about it from you guys and, other companies. It's like, yeah, the marketing side of it is huge, and getting it in front of the right audience, like we talked about. What is like the inception from like, hey, this is a good idea, to this is actually like, do you design like a protocol and then test it out? Like, I'm just curious what that timeline looks like, because I imagine it's probably a lot longer than we think.
That's a great question. It depends. So I'll give you an example. This is probably a pretty fast one. We got a product coming out in probably be about 7 weeks, and it's called the alignment mirror. So, and it's very cool. Think of a like a mirror for putting, but it's kind of convex, exactly the right shape, and it's got alignment rods that come out both sides, and it goes. You line your feet up on it instead of a alignment rod. It's got a mirror there with lines on it, so you can see where your head is, you can see what's moving, you can see your alignment, are your hips, are your knees lined up, your shoulders.
Is this for putting or full swing?
It's for full swing.
Okay.
Full swing. Yeah. And then if during your swing, you can even watch and see, okay, is my head going way back here? Is it going?
That's cool.
It's really cool. So the idea came from Don Sargent. Don Sargent he's just a class act. He's a great guy. He's the director of instruction at Scioto in Ohio. So he's got some chops, and he's a top 100 instructor. So we were at the PGA show last year, and Don came up, and I knew him from being a sponsor to the top 100 and things like that. And he said, "Hey, I got an idea for you." And he had a really, really rough prototype sort of idea about alignment. So we started immediately after we got back, and we've been working on that since then, working with Don to say, okay, how about this, and now it's ready. The tooling's done, so they're actually producing them now, and we'll have them in probably 6 or 7 weeks. So that's a pretty short time frame. That's less than a year.
Okay.
To get that one, and we have others that take probably. Well, I mean, even the alignment disc has evolved from original ceramic to plastic and things. It's always evolving. But the arm alarm took probably almost 2 years because of the electronic development and different things. And then
we get a chance to talk about that one real quick. I think a lot of golfers would benefit from that. Can you explain what the arm alarm does?
Yeah, so the arm alarm, if you look at, I think it's page 49 of Hogan's book.
Great book.
Oh my gosh. So he talks about the connection of your two arms. And he said when the arms stay connected, it pulls the rest of the swing together. And if the arms stay disconnected, so let's say a flying elbow, or as you start down, the elbow flies, it stays behind. The elbow doesn't, your trail elbow doesn't tuck in, or you have a chicken wing. You can't have a chicken wing. I mean, the chicken wing is caused primarily because you stop turning and your arms have no place to go except bend and fold. So he talks about that how probably there's nothing more important in a swing. And I think arguably, it could be the pressure shift or whatever it is. But if you keep the arms together, connected as working as a single unit, I think it's the single biggest thing you can do for a swing. And that's what I did the other day that worked for me. Unbelievable. So that smart ball from Martin Chuck at Tour Striker. Yeah. That's the whole concept behind the smart ball, and the one that's orange and blue before that, keeping those elbows together. What the arm alarm does, it does it in a different way. It has a tether and on the end, so you put a kind of almost like a watch on one arm and on the other arm, and one has a tether in it with a magnet that's adjustable in length. And then on this one, there's a little steel ball, and the magnet just connects. And if your arms come apart, it'll beep at you. And so you know when your arms come apart, you can adjust it to make it tighter. As you get better, you can tighten it up or loosen it. I found out for myself, I didn't know. I had a chicken wing. I hate the chicken wing. I hate it with a passion. I hate looking at it, my swing. I mean, it's almost like I'd rather have a pretty swing than score well.
I know. I constantly look at my swing. I'm like, damn, it's still not what I want. No, so exactly, I get it. There's always just those moves that are like that. It feels different than this video looks.
Yeah. So that chicken wing drove me crazy, and so that was one of the incentives for me was to make that. And if you can keep that thing on, suddenly I don't top the ball. Everything seems to kind of come together unbelievably. I mean, right now, because I don't play much. I don't have much time. I go out and practice. I love to go out and just hit balls and stuff. And so if you don't play, and so I'm right around a 10 handicap, sort of, so I went out on Sunday just wearing the arm alarm. That's the other thing. You can use it while you're playing, which is really cool. So wearing the arm alarm, I'm on the back nine of the bridges here in Southern California, and I'm one under going into 18. Of course, that pressure got to me and it topped it into the bushes, but
it's all right. We got a few episodes on the podcast if you want to tune up that mental game.
I know. Yeah. Well, I'd held it together pretty long for me, So, and then hey, I get a little credit. I did par the hole on my second ball, and it's
okay.
And
good
so
bounce
anyway,
back. Good bounce back.
Bounce back, one over on the back. And the only thing I thought about was keeping the elbows together and had with the arm alarm. It is just such a fundamental part of the game that I think gets lost.
And you can use it with all shots, like driver to wedge and everything, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I use it with everything. And it's great for short game too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that it's it's just a really cool product. Very, very versatile, cool product. I think it maybe for me is probably the most effective product that we have.
Okay. Gotcha. I was going to say, what would you say to like people that are hesitant about buying training aids and they're like, oh, this is like, there's too much hype for this or that, or, what, I'm just going to go get a lesson instead. Like what would you say to people that are, kind of on the fence with training aids still?
Yeah, I would say if you kind of know what your problem is, if you're an over the top guy, you want to think about alignment rods and that sort of stuff. If you can identify that maybe you're topping it because you're not shifting your pressure, that may, that you might go with a pressure plate with a wedge, things like that. If you can identify what you're working on, try it. If you don't like it, I mean, we say you have a 99-day return policy. I don't care if you have it 2 years. We're out here to help you. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help ourselves and help you. Same time, if it's not working for you, just send it back. So give it a try anyway. And some things will work and some things won't work. We're funny that way.
Everybody's wired a little different. And again, though, like you said, you still got to put in the work. It's not like you buy the training aid and you're a scratch golfer tomorrow, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What's on the horizon for you guys? I know you have some pretty exciting updates kind of coming out. Anything you can share with us about what the future looks like for YGolf?
Yeah, we've got it looks really good. So I just mentioned the alignment mirror. That's going to be pretty cool, and we're working on.
By the way, I have to also stop you and say that's such a good idea because alignment is the number one thing that most guys screw up. I think it's alignment and then weight transfer, I'd say, and then tempo. I think those three are for me. Again, I'm not a swing coach by any means, but alignment is, because I still do it sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, I'm aimed right. And I didn't even realize it. I'm like, why am I pulling it 30 yards? Because you're aimed 40 yards right, So I'm glad you guys are trying to tackle that one. I just had to give you a quick kudos there.
you're spot on with the tempo. I think that's the other thing for me. With my personality, I think we're, it's kind of odd, but I think we're biologically wired to, if we're going to kill a wild pig, we're coming down on the top of that thing with a knife.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's in our biology. So anything short of that it takes work to get the right tempo and things. But you're right. That's a huge, huge key. So, in addition to that, we're working on some other training aids that I think will be really, really valuable. Wrists are huge. If people are up with their wrists like this, they have a problem. They kind of have to come over the top even to hit the ball. So we're working on that. We've got some really good. Been through probably 15 different prototypes now.
I can imagine.
Yeah. In fact, I just picked up some new parts today, 3D printed parts for the next version. But the other thing that we've got coming out that I think is going to be really different is we've got an app coming out, and the app is completely different than anything out there. You will be able to keep score with your buddies. It'll automatically connect to the GEN system, so you'll be able to upload your scores automatically. Eventually, we'll help keep track of your bets and things. For now, it's scoring, and it'll show your everybody's net on each hole. So that. It'll have that kind of as but that's not the primary function of it. The primary function is to track your shots. So, and it's not, I don't care about greens and regulations or fairways hit and things. That doesn't, if I'm an instructor and somebody comes to me and says, listen, I'm getting 63% of my greens or fairways hit. I don't know what to do with that. Okay. So you have to know what's happening. What's the ball doing? So in this one, you're able to track your shots, and you kind of you'll rate your shot on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 to 5 stars. Okay. So, and we have for driver, for full swing, for chips and pitches, greenside bunkers, and putting. And the relative measure is you. If it's a 5-star being great for you, I mean, my 5-star might be your 2-star or 3-star, right? But it's all relative to you. I'm not competing with Scotty Scheffler, or
Right.
These guys. So I just want to continually get better. So let's say I say, okay, that was a 2 or 3. If it comes up a 4 or 5-star, you just hit submit and it goes into the denominator and it keeps track of that. Okay, shot was good. If it doesn't, let's say I hit a 2 or 3, then a screen comes up that says, okay, what happened to it? So if it's a full swing or a driver, and a pull or a hook or a fade or a push, and the contact missed high or low, and you just press whatever happened to it, and that goes into all your database. And you do that with all the shots. And for putts, it's left or right or long or short, or a misread, left or right to left.
Yeah, the misread's always one that's like, I don't feel like stats accurately track that, because I'm like, well, I hit a perfect putt, I just misread it. So
Correct.
yeah, that's really good. So then you
Yeah.
use AI then to like track all of it and like figure out, does it show room to like what you need to do to improve, or like what's the next step once you enter all the data?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we just spent, I spent the summer producing videos with using Brad Ott and Brian and Amy for a training academy. And the academy it's really, so we ended up with about 70 videos, and I spent 2.5 weeks in an editing room and it's me asking them questions as average golfer. Okay, you said your hands are neutral. What does that mean? Okay, let's keep it simple. And the other thing we have now is, and I've done all the work on this behind the scenes, is that if you have an issue that pops up, we'll be able to push out, an email if you want it that night, if you played, and say, hey, listen, here's what we saw today. Here's our recommended videos that might help with that problem.
Oh, cool. So that's how the academy links in with that. Okay, cool.
That links in. And I tell you what, filming those things and going through it, there's golden nuggets in there that we forget. Just things that I'm just going, oh man. And it's really just sitting in that room for 2.5 weeks helped my game a lot. And so that it'll have that. It's got the feature I probably use the most is it's got a feature for keeping track of your swing thoughts. So you're out on the practice tee, and you go, okay, I did this didn't work, this didn't work, or whatever. And you can enter that swing thought. It's real simple. It'll timestamp it, date, so you know when it was.
Yeah.
You can reprioritize them. You can move them up and down. Okay, now what was I doing before? Oh, I see it down here. I'll move that one up to the top, and just keep track of your swing thoughts for whatever part of the game you're working on.
That's cool, because like when we were talking last week and I just was going through, I had a tournament this last weekend. I had some swing thoughts. I wrote them down in another note in my phone, which is just a black hole of feet left, shoulders right, tempo, ball position. So that's cool that you guys are going to have that too. I think that could just be worth it alone right there.
Well, it is for me, and then we'll have an AI function. You can ask any golf question you want. It's all set up, and you don't have to be on Chat GPT to do it. It'll any question.
Wild. That's cool, man. Well, I know that took a lot of work and a lot of money and a lot of time. So congrats on whenever that rolls out. I'll definitely let the audience know, because that seems like a ton of potential there.
Yeah. So that's fun, and then we're just gonna keep on cruising and seeing how we can continue to help people.
I love it. That's amazing. Before I let you go, what's the best place for people to learn more about YGolf and connect with you?
Yeah, just whygolf.com.
Okay.
WHYGOLF, as in why the heck do we golf?
I was actually,
that's the
yep.
PG version.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and I'll link to your guys' TikTok and Instagram. I know that, people follow me have definitely seen your guys' stuff on there from some of our collabs too. But yeah, thanks again for being on and just sharing some more. And hopefully we'll, get players with the off season coming up too. That's the beauty of it, is like you said, like we talked about earlier, swing changes take time. You can't do it once and, hope for it. So even if you can't play, there's still things you can do. Even if you're in like the, coldest part of the country, there's still things you can do to work on your game. And there's a lot of great ways to, set up indoor nets and practice facilities and stuff like that, and use the training aids you guys have, which is super cool. So appreciate what you guys are doing for golfers. And I'm sure we'll have you back once that app comes on, because I can't wait to try it out.
Awesome. Michael, I really appreciate the time, and I really enjoy working with you. It's a pleasure.
Hey, just a reminder, if you're ready to get started with any of these YGolf training aids, use the code WICKEDSMART at checkout and save 15% on your investment.